Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual literature that I have found in my travels and was maybe manipulated into reading by a grandmother who thinks she knows better than me. In case you didn't get that hint, I am going to be talking about a book that I read recently. It's one of a series that I am engaging in. Apparently to the very end, I am referring to Princess in Love from the Princess Diaries series by Meg Cabot. Something interesting is I really like this color on the book. It's really nice. It sets it apart from the other books, because the other one was just light blue and it's kind of ugly to look at. So once again, I have read this book. To be honest, I actually loved it a lot more than the second book. The second book was abysmal, and this one addressed a lot of my complaints that I had about the book series as a whole, as if Meg Cabot could see into the future 20 years ago and knew that a guy named Mr. Nothing would be talking on a booktube channel about how much he deplored one of her books. So I'm glad she changed everything just for me. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'll talk about why as we get to the analysis later on. But let's start off with the summary of what goes on and stuff. Where is our fair Princess Mia at the start of this book? So at the start of this book, Mia is, it starts at Thanksgiving. So about like a week or so, maybe a month or so, something like that. About a month or so after the events of the second book, where she finds herself now in a relationship with someone she doesn't want to be in. But it starts at Thanksgiving. Mia finds herself having two Thanksgiving. One with Mr. Gianni's family, as her mother and Mr. Gianni are now married, and Mr. Gianni is her stepfather, who is failing her because she's a bad student in math and algebra. But she quickly leaves that Thanksgiving to go to one at the Plaza Hotel in New York, because her grandmother threw a party and invited a lot of foreign dignitaries. And Mia goes there and embarrasses herself a little bit. But also one of the more funnier things about it is that her grandmother forces her to wear flats. She's a tall lady, but her grandmother forces her to wear flats because it's considered rude to be taller than an emperor, meaning the Emperor of Japan, which I thought funny and is like just a sign of like how funny this book gets at times, which I enjoyed. And then the book goes forward about a week or two later. Mia is talking about how she's very unhappy in her new relationship. Like she's sort of realizing that she made a mistake in agreeing to go out with Kenny, but she didn't want to. I guess she didn't want to be single, which is very, I guess, kind of human. Like a lot of people don't want to be single, and there's the fact that like she's kind of one of the only single people in the entire school. And now she finds herself going on like double dates with all of her friends and their boyfriends. So it's kind of hard to get out of this at this moment. And like Mia talks about all the things she hates about Kenny, like he's an anime nerd, and that's right. We should scorn like all the anime freaks out there. And he's into sci-fi, which Mia notes isn't friendly towards women. Doesn't feature a lot of role model female characters at times, and there's like no chemistry between them. Mia is just kind of there just to be there. She's not even trying to kiss Kenny really, and she's focusing on like how she'd rather be with Michael, but Michael seems to be in a relationship with this character Judith, who showed up on the scene, who knows how to like clone fruit flies of all things. And like Mia's comparing herself, and like, how can I compare? She seems marvelous. Throughout much of the book, Mia's given advice from her family on how to handle the situation. Her father, in one of those rare moments where he's not like useless, tells her that she should show Michael how she feels in order to win his heart, which is a pretty good piece of advice. Her grandmother says that she should string Kenny along until after the holidays, in a very like weird sociopathic moment where like Mia recognizes how crazy it is of her to say that, and Mia ultimately agrees to go along with this because like she recognizes that Kenny is the only thing stopping her from failing biology, because he lets her copy off his notes and like kind of cheats on tests with him. So she's like, well, might as well keep him around until after finals later this month. Lily tells her that Mia doesn't tell her that she likes Michael, but Lily tells her that because she's not happy in this relationship with Kenny, maybe that's evidence that she's not ready to be in a relationship in general. And again, that's very wise advice. I feel like a lot of people in high school aren't quite ready for a relationship yet. I wasn't, for one, and I caused so much trauma onto others by mistake. And her friend Tina Hakim Baba, Tina, a marvelous character, this book series should be about her, recognizes that like her love with Michael is true, and so she helps her, like Tina writes secret love letters for Mia and puts them in Michael's locker, and that's what they do throughout much of the story, and it shows that Mia is becoming more of an active character in her own story. Instead of just sitting around waiting for Michael to like her, she's writing secret letters. Although Tina points out, like, what's the point of writing those letters if you're not going to follow up on it later? And that's also wise advice on her part. Throughout the book, Lily tries to organize her fellow students, mainly because one of her teachers decides not to let her write a paper about how horrible high school is. And tries to get her to write something else, something more productive. And while Lily is organizing the strike, one day she decides she's just gonna get all the students to do a walkout. But Mia decides like to sneak out of class and pull the fire alarm before the students do a walkout. I think in a sign of loyalty to Mr. Gianni, because she doesn't want to, I guess she doesn't want to cause too much trouble in the school, but she also doesn't want to tell Lily, no, like, I don't want to do your strike, because she feels loyalty to her as well. And so the fire alarm is another active thing she's doing that gets sort of gets her out of this situation. Although there are some people in the school who kind of knows like Mia asks for the hall pass, and then the fire alarm goes off. Like, 1 and 1 make 2, Grandmere and a new character, Sebastiano, return in this story. Grandmother is still sociopathic, as always, with the advice that she gave Mia earlier. And then Sebastiano would be the heir to the throne if it weren't for Mia. Because Sebastiano has a lot of more time on his hands, he spends it being a fashion designer, and he has Mia try on clothes, which boosts her confidence in a lot of ways, because she's realizing how beautiful she truly is, rather than the horrid, like, disgusting she-beast that she has conjured in her head since this point. Something that happens is that Sebastiano ends up sending her pictures to one of the newspapers, and they print it in one of their Sunday editions. And Mia is horrified because, like, she didn't give Sebastiano permission, but Grandmere ended up giving him permission to do that, which upsets Mia's father, because this is kind of manipulative and maybe going beyond what Mia is comfortable at this moment. Later on, Grandma kind of explains her actions with, like, she wants Mia to recognize how beautiful she is, and that's very admirable, and like a good moment for Grandma to for Meg Cabot to show that Grandma's not a complete psychopath. But at the same time, you're still going against Mia's wishes. It doesn't matter if your intentions are good, you still did what someone didn't want to do. And that's a problem there. Although an interesting thing is that a little while after these pictures are taken, Mia schedules a press conference on her own, which her grandma later admits is something pretty noble on her part. And at the press conference, she says that she will give all the proceeds from the dresses that Sebastiano is selling to Greenpeace, which is a running theme throughout the series, how she's very environmentally conscious. So I thought that was an interesting moment. Yet another active moment on Mia's part, where she's becoming a player in her own story rather than sitting by in the first and second books, as I noted, which you can see in the other videos I made about this. Yeah, and her grandma thinks again that it's noble of her, because she's sort of learning from grandma, but improving herself in her own way. Like she's being a princess on her own terms. And then the story ends with the winter ball, yet another dance that the students go to end the story, which I think might be showing some of Cabot's template writing, how she just like uses the same kind of beats to tell her story. Although we'll see in the next couple books that holds true as well. Maybe it's just a good idea to end the book on like a big grand ball, or like a wedding or something like that. Maybe I'm just complaining about nothing there. On the day of the ball, she breaks up with Kenny. Although hilariously, Kenny thinks that Mia has been cheating on him with Boris, who is Lily's boyfriend. Mia's kind of horrified at that, but she doesn't get a chance to correct him before Tina drags her away. Everyone is staring at Michael's computer, and when Mia comes over, she sees that Michael has a picture of a castle on his computer, along with a poem: "Roses are red, violets are blue. You may not know it, but I love you too," which is a reference to the letter she wrote him in previously in the book, where she's like, "Roses are red, violets are blue. You may not know this, but I love you." It's really sappy, and like it reveals that Michael has known that Mia feels something about him, and that was his way of returning it. But Mia like panics in a very typical Mia moment, and is just like, "I gotta get out of here. I can't deal with all of these." And so Mia goes home, and she kind of hides on her fire escape, and doesn't want to deal with anybody else. And she's first visited by, interestingly, Meg Cabot introduces a trans character out of nowhere. I think it's Ronnie. It might be is the character's name. Yeah, the character is just talking to Mia, and Mia talks about her problems, and the character's like, "Yeah, I'm not surprised that high school hasn't changed since I started going there." And yeah, the character reveals that they're a trans woman, and then they offer Mia a blanket because she's staying on a fire escape, and it's cold outside. And then that character goes away, and it's like 1 or 2 pages, but it's still interesting because Meg Cabot wrote a trans character with proper pronouns in 2002. And that's like something that you would not see in 2002. Like there's very few instances of positive portrayals of trans characters, like 20 years ago. And I can't say enough like interesting things. Like it's great, and I gotta commend her on that. Like I've said a lot about how Meg Cabot's social justice work is very iffy at times, but this seems really solid, and I gotta applaud her for that. So clap, 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 clap. But then her grandma comes out on the balcony too, and her grandma talks to her about how like how what she's doing is for the good of Mia, and how she's encouraging Mia to go to the dance because Mia says, "Oh, I want to go live in Genovia now. Like I hear things will be better. It'll be pretty neat." And her grandma just loses it, and like is like, "You're not going to Genovia to flee. Like the Thermopolises and the Rinaldis do not flee. That is very unnoble. You are going to go to that dance, and you are going to be brave." And it's such a beautiful moment for grandma. Like finally, someone who is cool, someone who has a Julie Andrews moment, like in the movie, and so rather than someone who's a sociopath and I want to just push down a flight of stairs. It's a great moment. And so Mia goes to the dance, and she talks with Michael, and Michael's like, "I wasn't making fun of you earlier. Like I feel the same way that you do, and I would like to be in a relationship. I love you." And I don't think it's actual love, but that's another thing entirely. But yeah, they kiss and they make out, and it's a great time had by all. A funny moment is that Michael reveals that Lily told him, and they look over there, and Tina's next to Lily, and it's like Tina told Lily, and it's pretty funny because they both just like avert their eyes to make sure that like they don't know. I guess it's Lily kind of knew, and she didn't really judge Mia for having known, which is a sign of a really great friend right there. And so that's the end of the book. The book kind of ends with Mia getting ready to fly to Genovia. She still has to meet with the dignitaries and do a whole bunch of meet and greets and whatnot, and just get ready for her life as a princess once she gets out of high school. So there's a lot of stuff I want to note with this book. One is it's infinitely better than the second book, which like almost nothing happens, and it doesn't really justify its existence at all. But here, like, a lot more happens. It's a lot character development heavy, and maybe it's because of what happens over the previous two books that you see all that character development happen. But it shouldn't take like two previous books for someone to become a different person. You should show that character development in one book, at least in my opinion. And Mia's more active here. Like she writes the love letters to Michael. She makes the relationship try to manifest itself. She calls out her grandma on her BS, and then when she has to, she makes her own speech about Greenpeace, which shows that she's really navigating and exploring and making her princess-ship all her own, rather than doing it according to what her grandma says or what her dad says or what the people of Genovia might expect. And I think that's really important, that, like, especially for the intended audience, which is teenage girls, they should you should definitely let them know that they should be in control of their own destiny rather than someone else telling them how a certain thing should be. And that reminds me, earlier I had, like in previous videos, I had said that Mia complained about her boobs a lot, and that was kind of weird, and I didn't think that teenage girls actually complained about that a lot. However, what's interesting is that a friend told me that was something that teenage girls actually had to deal with, because society often tells you that if you don't have boobs, you're not a real woman. And so I just wanted to, offer, I guess, an apology there and say that I guess I didn't know enough. And I'm coming at this book from a male perspective, which can be a bit problematic when it's aimed at teenage girls. So I think that's important to clarify there. I also like the slowly developing positive relationship between Mia and grandmother. It was adversarial in the past, and like Mia never really told off her grandma, but she's starting to do it more and more. Like, she's starting to be like, Grandma, I don't like what you did, and I'm not going to listen to you. And there's a lot of problems with grandma in that Meg Cabot doesn't address it enough as a problem. Like, she makes it seem like it's okay, which I have a problem with, because like, why would she seem to condone this behavior, even though it's like terrible and sociopathic at times? And it does seem like Meg Cabot isn't doing enough to address it as bad behavior, but it is getting better. Like Grandma's telling Mia that she admires her and that she appreciates that she's sticking up for herself, and she's offering her great advice. So like, that relationship is changing, and Grandma is turning out to be a slightly better character. There's a lot of room to grow, but slightly better. I can't say enough great things about the trans character, which is building upon the already like social justice-y kind of themes that Meg Cabot touches upon in the series as a whole. It was only for 1 or 2 pages, but it's still more exposure than a lot of trans characters got at the time. So hooray for the bare minimum, I guess. I do think that Meg Cabot's social justice like themes and talk is kind of clumsy at times, but she is getting a lot better. And maybe that's a sign that she's writing more, so she's becoming a better author, which is always a great thing. When you get to see an author grow and become better at their craft. And so that was Princess in Love by Meg Cabot. Overall, I really enjoyed this a lot more than the second book, as I noted before. I'm not going to say whether I recommend it or not, because it's the third book in the series, and if you haven't decided by now whether you're going to read it, I'm probably not going to be able to convince you otherwise. So I absolutely loved it. I do think it's weird how they made Kenny a punching bag. Like, he didn't really do anything wrong. But Meg Cabot just seemed to like, everything's wrong with Kenny. He must be made to suffer. And I just thought that was a little weird. Especially because, Kenny kind of reminds me of me in high school. And it's just like, bad memories, man. Bad memories. But other than that, like, the book is pretty solid, and I actually can't wait to read the fourth book, but that's not going to happen probably to the end of August because of what else I have planned for August. Be on the lookout for that. Other than that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment if you read this book and have something to share, or if you just want to comment on something I said. I would love to have a discussion with you. Until then, I wish you a pleasant time in your weird travels. Farewell.